joining us now on the Fan Hotline. He was at the shoe yesterday. Got some FaceTime, sources tell me, with Matthew McConaughey. All right. He is Bill Bender. Bill, thanks so much for the time this morning. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, yeah. And, it's amazing when he walks in the stadium, that's where all the cameras go. For all the stars that were in there. My mom, I was joking. So my mom sent me a text and said, can you get his number? And I was like, dude, you're my mom. Come on. And she goes, I don't care. I still want his number. He looks good.
What did you like? Did you get to talk to him, or was it like you just were able to walk by and be in his presence? I've had many of those moments at Rocket Arena covering the Cavaliers, being around the celebrities. I'm like, hey, I met Beyonce once. She was in front of me. I was walking one way, and she was kind of going the other with Jay-Z.
Yeah, no, I didn't talk to him, but definitely, all the cameras were there when he was talking to Jim Tressel and Mac Brown, and then I snuck in a conversation with Mac, who I talked to the previous week about a Corso story. It was kind of ironic that Tressel and Mac were talking. They were the coaches in that legendary 2005 game, and that's kind of what I wrote about yesterday. As great as that game was yesterday, and as awesome as Ohio State's defense was, to me it didn't have that same meaning that game in 2005 did. Because I think we all agree that Texas will get better and they'll go back to the playoff. The biggest takeaway to me, though, is that Ohio State defense is unbelievable. It is national championship level again, and they lost a bunch of guys.
Yeah, Bill, I want to start here, though, because you mentioned Lee Corso, and just watching on television, watching College Game Day from the comfort of my recliner, watching Ryan Day give him a helmet with a Buckeye sticker on it for every time he picked the Buckeyes to win. And then he handed him an extra one. He goes, just in case you need this for later today. And of course was like, not so fast, my friend, in his vintage show. But just what was that scene like in the shoe for that final Corso moment where he put on his first love, Brutus's head, and Ohio State gave him his own Brutus head?
Yeah, I saw that. It was pretty neat. It was. I'll say it this way: the press box was quiet. Everybody was paying attention.
Yeah.
When you're in a press box, you guys have done that. You guys are doing their own thing, and that something could be going on, and there's 100 things going on. It was silent because everybody was watching. I thought that was pretty cool. Lee obviously means so much to the game. He has helped popularize it for guys my age in their 40s. We woke up every Saturday and watched him. And that became appointment television, and it still was. So that was a really cool moment.
Bill, you mentioned Arch Manning going into this game. That was really the storyline. Coming out of the game, though, feels like the storyline certainly is Ohio State's defense and how they were able to just dominate Arch in his first real start as QB1 for Texas. What'd you see out of the Buckeyes defense that you really liked? Because they were able to make Arch Manning look pretty pedestrian out there.
Their linebackers are really good. Reese was all over the place. That's an NFL linebacker. Sonny Styles played great. Jermaine Matthews at corner was a difference maker. And Matt Patricia just has a knack for making it work, right? We were all concerned, okay, how's it going to look with him coming from the NFL? I'd say it looks pretty good, and taking a cue on some level from Michigan, who has Wink Martindale. These guys were very good NFL defensive coordinators. And I think they're going to be very good college defensive coordinators as well.
Bill, on the inverse, Ohio State's offense, I guess there, could be room for improvement, only scoring 14 points in that victory. What'd you see from Julian Sayin? Obviously, there were a couple throws that were really nice. I'm sure there are a few that he would like back. I'm expecting that Ohio State's offense is going to be really good this year, and that what we saw week one was just them going up against a really good Texas team.
Yeah, Texas's defense is nasty too. They've Simmons, Hill, nasty secondary. Texas is going to be fine, is what I'm telling you. And that's also that, as Brian Day said afterward, we could have opened it up a little bit there in the second half, but when you're in a defensive struggle like that, you don't want to commit the big turnover. Julian Sayin thought yeah, I hate that label game manager. He just didn't make a big mistake, though. And in a game like that, you couldn't make the big mistake. So I do think the running backs, it's going to be a learning curve compared to, I mean, they lost 2 NFL running backs. So you're figuring that out, and Jeremiah Smith will come along. And good news is they play Grambling before they have to run into my alma mater here in a couple weeks when the Bobcats roll into town.
Bill Bender, Sporting News, joins us. Bill, I struggle with watching college football today just from this standpoint. Like, I guess today I'm supposed to have all these hot takes about Arch Manning's career and his future based off this one game, which he did not play well. His accuracy wasn't there. He didn't look comfortable, and Ohio State certainly had something to do with that. But, you know, as someone who's around the college game, and you're around these student athletes, and in some respects they're not student athletes anymore with the NIL, how do you, when you're watching these games, are you still able to watch them through the same lens that you watched maybe 5, 6, 10, 15 years ago?
It's harder. Well, I think the 5-star label thing, and I think you bring up a great point. I get frustrated watching college football, too, with some simple in-game concepts, right? So, but I think Arch, he's fine. You know, I wrote about that in our overreactions today. He's a lot more fine than, say, Kalen DeBoer is today. I would say that. And then, you know what? So what here? Try this theory. What's a win with a 5-star? Would you rather have a 5-star that leaves in a year, or would you rather be Penn State and Clemson with a kid that you get as a 5-star? He's a 3-year starter. You know, there's ups and downs with him. But, I mean, Drew Aller, I mean, he's won a lot of games at Penn State. He's taken them to the semifinal. They're number 3 in the country. That, to me, is a win, even if he has a couple bad games along the way.
Bill, you mentioned the Ohio State running backs, and not just sending 2 to the National Football League, but you send 2 in the top 50, and it just goes to show how good Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins were for that national championship team last season. In your mind, what does Ohio State need to do in the coming weeks, like you said, against Grambling State, OU, to get that run game going? Because that was the one component of the Ohio State team that just looked a little bit disjointed yesterday against Texas.
It did, but then at the same token, they did have 7 straight run plays to that first touchdown, and they were able to kind of power it in like the old school Big Ten football way. Donaldson's new. He's a good running back, though, and Peoples is young. And they've got some options behind them that'll probably get some looks in these next couple games. So I think it'll figure itself out a little bit. You know, the one guy, he made the catch yesterday that, you know, Cornell Tate makes a catch and you forget, oh, hey, by the way, there's another first-round guy. Yeah. So he's super talented, too. That was a heck of a catch.
Yeah, Ohio State's wide receiver, I want to ask you about Jeremiah Smith. Saying missed him early, wide open, would have been an easy touchdown. The scene with Ryan Day talking to him about that. Smith had a couple of drops early in the game. They reported on the broadcast that he changed his gloves, and then magically he started catching football. So was that it? It was just the gloves for Jeremiah Smith early in that game?
Yeah, that was the problem for me in high school, too. It was the gloves, right? That's why I dropped those passes against, like, Bishop Hartley as a junior. I'll blame those. It was he's a great player. And, yeah, he is. You know, I think it could be nerves. It could be anything. He had the one drop that every receiver ever has made. You know, he was trying to turn upfield before he caught the ball. Yep. And in a high – so I have, like, zero worries about Jeremiah Smith, his production. You know, they're going to target him 10 times a game, and he's going to make a ton of plays this year. And, you know, as I do every year, you kind of watch Ohio State, then you kind of watch Michigan in the evening. That's going to be an awesome game in November. I know I'm looking way ahead, but yeah. The Wolverines look better, too.
Well, I'll ask you about that then, Bill. Bryce Underwood, that's the big story, is that Michigan is able to get, one of the premier quarterback recruits that we've ever seen in college football. What do you make of that late November matchup? Do you think this could finally be the year where Ohio State is able to shake the boogeyman that's become the Michigan Wolverines?
They should, but there were flaws yesterday with Bryce Underwood. He'll come around. I think he's better than Dylan Raiola was as a freshman. I'll go. That's not like taking a huge leap. I think he's got some serious arm talent. He made some big throws. It was New Mexico. We're going to find out all we need to know about Michigan next week. They go down to Oklahoma. John Mateer was awesome for Oklahoma last night. So I think that's because the NFL's next weekend. I think college did a smart thing, by the way. They threw them all out there this weekend. And, Michigan, Oklahoma is really the only ranked game we'll see in week 2.
Other games of importance for the Buckeyes here, Bill. They've got a bunch of cupcake matchups almost coming up, but Ohio State, Illinois, that one's going to be really good. Ohio State, Penn State, November 1st is really the game that Buckeye fans should have scheduled. That first day of November, those just feel like massive games for this team's trajectory at that college football playoff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Penn State, Ohio State could be 1 versus 2, right? Like that's going to be a game that we get down the line that'll be 1 versus 2. I think we didn't learn much about Oregon. We didn't learn much about that. Illinois Ohio State game's going to be a really good one, sneaky good one in there. I think Illinois is really good. Indiana didn't look as good as they did last year. They struggled a little bit with Old Dominion to get the ball going, but then that Big Ten is strong. And I'll prove it to you. If you look at the records against the other Power 4 conferences, the Big Ten had the best record yesterday. So, or over the last couple of days, Nebraska beat Cincinnati, and we'll learn more over the next couple of weeks. But I do think they might have just as many playoff contending teams as the SEC. That was like one of the hidden things that happened in week 1, and we can talk about Alabama if you want, but. Wow, that was the biggest stunner to me yesterday.
Bill Bender, senior writer, Sporting News, joining us. Bill, when you look at this, this Buckeye team right now, what is the biggest worry?
Roster-wise, there's no worry, so to speak. I mean, you mentioned the running backs. The running game will have to be better than it was yesterday over the course of a 4-game playoff, over the course of a Michigan and a Penn State game. Penn State's really good, too. I didn't see a ton of their game. I got home. I'll rewatch it today, but I'm assuming that, 46-11, they did just fine. I did see that Nevada got the late touchdown, though. They got the late touchdown that Penn State normally gets to cover. I can say that. Not that I know why, but those things happen. And I think the running game, the running backs, to win a Big Ten championship, you have to be able to run the football. And that'll be something to watch over the next coming weeks.
Bill, we're here in Cleveland, and our Brown season hasn't even started yet, but we've got an eye on the 2026 mock drafts because of the quarterbacks. It's just 1 week, but who do you like to be maybe the best NFL-ready quarterback coming out of this class?
Probably Garrett Nussmeier. If Arch doesn't come out, and I don't think Arch will come out. I think when Archie said that, he was kind of, I know he got yelled at, but I just look at the Manning family track record. Peyton stayed for 4. Eli stayed for 5. So, I think Garrett Nussmeier might be that guy. And it's not an overly sexy pick. I understand that. This might be a year where if you have a high draft pick, that you go get Francis Mauigoa. I'll watch him tonight, Miami offensive lineman. Reuben Bain, that's one of the edge rushers, those Clemson defensive linemen. What stood out to me with LSU Clemson, though, it was supposed to be the quarterbacks. If you're an NFL draft guy, how many defensive guys were flying around in that game?
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. I mean, if you need some guys on defense, go get a Harold Perkins or a TJ Parker. That game was awesome if you like defense.
Yeah, well, defense isn't the Browns' problem. It's their offense.
Bill, we're starving for a quarterback here.
They're really good at stopping people, not so much at scoring points.
Yeah, and I get that. And there is but the quarterback class, it could just be, Drew Aller, Cade Klubnik, maybe Arch. I can give you a sleeper Heisman guy, though, and He looked good late last night. Devin Dampier at Utah is awesome. And, he fits exactly what they're going to do. I always look at the quarterbacks that I think are going to get 1,000 rushing yards. He had 1,000 rushing yards last year. You look at who's won the Heisman, 1,000 rushing yards. Manziel, Newton, Daniels. So keep an eye on him and that Utah team. They looked really good, by the way, slamming Nico Iamaleava and UCLA. I'm sure Tennessee fans were happy about that.
Drew Aller, another QB that you named there, he's a local kid from up here, Medina, Ohio, and he's been at Penn State for a minute. What do you think his long-term view is this season at Penn State and ultimately how he projects in the NFL draft next season?
You got the measurables. I love him as a leader and those things, the intangibles. I took it back a couple years ago. He had a rough game. We're just talking about that, like Arch did yesterday. Drew Aller had a really rough day at Ohio State a couple years ago, and he owned it in the locker room in the press conference, and I thought there was a lot of maturity there, that he put everything on him and won a lot of football games, plays with that style. I mean, it's a big year for him in terms of getting those looks, because I think at the combine he'll be a guy that will love his size, will love his arms. We do hyper-focus on how he plays against the Ohio States and Michigans, but, to play devil's advocate, I was like, I texted this to a buddy a couple weeks ago. Name one Penn State receiver the last 4 years, and you don't get the tight end from last year. Tyler Warren doesn't count. Name one guy. And, that's been part of the problem there. If you gave Drew Aller Ohio State's receivers, I think you'd do just fine.
He is Bill Bender, senior writer for the Sporting News. Bill, listen, I'm just glad they had a seat for you in the press box with all the the Browns front office folk that were down there yesterday. I'm glad that your seat was at least safe.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me on, guys. Let's do this again during the season.
You betcha. There he is, Bill Bender, senior writer from the Sporting News.